Good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to be here with you. Unfortunately, this is the last day of the conference, so I understand that not everybody was able to attend it. But I'll try to make the best out of my time and trying to convey some interesting message, which you will find fruitful and interesting, hopefully. What I would like to do with these presentations today, it consists of two parts. First, we will go through the main megatrends which are influencing the way we live and the way we work. And subsequently, I will try to give you a glimpse on how EFQM as a community, as a business excellence custodian, is reacting to these new challenges. Let's start with displaying the 9 megatrends that the EFQM community has identified as being the global shifts and forces which are influencing and impacting the way we do business today. There are lots of studies available, researchers, and EFQM spent almost 2 years with this community to try to grab the key global shifts which are really influencing the most the way we do business. And we came up with these 9 megatrends. Let's start with the first one. Difference between generations. So here you see depicted mostly the new generation, the millennials, the baby boomers. Basically, the retirement age is increasing in most economies, with many people choosing or having to work longer. This is leading to an increased range of age available in any organization as a workforce. Globally speaking, there is a tendency for an aging population. In some countries, the birth rate are increasing. In many others, are declining. And this demographic diversity is now available to any sort of organization when it comes to the process of attracting and retaining talent. This means that organizations have to develop flexible and new ways and approaches to engage with different groups. If we think millennials, baby boomers, centennials, each of these groups is characterized by a different set of values, and they think differently. So you can imagine this is a big challenge for leaders and organizations. They have to find new ways and flexible ways to engage with different groups and different communities. That's the first one. The second one is what we call the next level of human consciousness. This is about the change of behavior, the change of aspiration, the change of attitudes with the workforce in the organization. They look for purpose. We like to say that the traditional way we manage organization is increasingly out of date. Deeper inside each of us, we sense that more is possible, that we can give more, but at the same time we expect that the organization is giving us more. And we all long for what we call soulful workplaces, where characteristics, features such as connection, community, purpose, passion, and authenticity are the building blocks of such environment. This is really a big challenge for organizations, as to need to develop new enlightened organizational structure and approaches to make sure that this sense of mindfulness is really cultivated within the organization. The third one, this is very interesting, it's no surprise that we indicated among the 9 key megatrends, is the unavailability of key skills. And rather than going for the theoretical description, I would like to provoke you. And there are a couple of job descriptions which I've seen advertised in a magazine last week. One was a research for waste data manager. Interesting. And the second one was specialist of the emotional connection between machines and human beings. If you think about these 2 job descriptions, and we rewind and we go back in time, 10 years ago, this might have been a scene of a Blade Runner movie or science fiction. Today, it's reality. Tomorrow, it will be mainstream. That means that companies will research constantly people who are expert in wasting, in being waste data manager, or specialists in understanding what is the dynamics and what is the emotional linkages between robots and human beings. Isn't it interesting? It's very, very challenging for organizations as to have to anticipate what are the needs that companies will have in the future to comply and to address these new tendencies. And of course, on the other side, there is a continuous research for new competences, skills, and the like, what we call the war of talent. So that's the third megatrend, which we have identified in EFQM as being a fundamental shift in the way we do business. The next one is linked to the previous one, which is about the new technologies affecting people's life. It's not just a change and an advancement in technology per se, which is already quite a substantial change. More interestingly, the focus here is on how behavior of people change because of these new technologies. And this behavior change within the organization as much as they change in the relationship with all the stakeholders. If we think about the customer experience, we know that the digital age experience is tremendously changing the way customers are demanding a service which satisfies their needs. We all know that the digital platform, the digital connectivity, is placing the customer at the center of everything, and the customer is expecting us to deliver a continuous, flawless, customized service at any given time. At the same time, the new technology and the new digital evolution is increasing the connectedness across the world, which is generating lots of benefits and advantages for the organization, but at the same time, is also creating big risks given the volatility of financial markets, given the cybersecurity risk, and so on and so forth. The next one, the fifth, is the sharing economy and distributed trust. Again, here, rather than going for the theoretical description, I would like to, consider two examples. The one of Uber on the one side, and the one of Airbnb and Booking on the other side. If you compare Booking with any professional rent-a-car company, if you compare Airbnb and Booking with any professional specialist in the hospitality industry, we realize that there is a big difference. So, not to name any organization in the hospitality industry, we see that the big players have big assets which they have to manage, and they get a certain revenue. If you consider Booking or Airbnb, it's not quite the same. These are organizations who do not own this great amount of assets, but at the same time, they generate a revenue which is times and times higher than the one of the traditional players. You realize that this is a game changer in the way organizations operate in their businesses. And key in this aspect is not just the transaction, it's not just the service which is delivered and what the customer is ready to pay. What the critical success factors in this respect is the trust that we generate, because all these systems are fundamentally based on trust. When we book an apartment with Airbnb, trust is generated by different parts. The owner, who puts the services and the apartment available for people who they don't know, the platform, which connects the two elements together, and obviously the customers who has to trust the platform, and the owner who has to be able to experience an outstanding experience. That being said, we continue with the sixth one, which is linked to the resource scarcity. So the world, there is a key trend of overpopulation and urbanizations in many countries. This is obviously constitute a big challenge for many players and organizations as the lack of resources is becoming more and more a reality. What this means in the business context? This means that organizations of any kind of sector and size are faced with the challenge of reinforcing their responsibility vis-à-vis sustainability, and one of the trends which is happening worldwide is the circular economy. So make sure that we minimize the waste as much as possible, that we use input, we generate output, and by minimizing waste, we are able to get out of the waste some product that we can reutilize or that we can offer to someone else as part of the sharing economy. So this is a fundamental trend which is characterized by a changing culture and a changing way in the way organizations are confronting with the sustainability challenge of our planet. The next one is the overregulation. It's interesting that many CEOs rank overregulation as one of the key headaches that keeps them awake at night. Typical examples are the regulations that every countries and every regions are introducing in the automotive sector. If we think about the airports, and I'm really fascinated all the time I fly to Abu Dhabi and Dubai and arrive here in the middle of the night and I see, oh, this seems like the middle of the day. You have so many people around, so many flights. If you fly to Europe, this is not possible because airports shut down at midnight and they reopen at 5:30 in the morning. So there are very strict regulations which prevent airline companies from flying to Europe overnight. And this is a key challenge that organizations operating in the industry have to face and challenge. There are many of these challenges, many countries, institutions, associations, and regulatory bodies are implementing and are developing new regulations, and organizations which operate globally have to face this challenge. Operating globally and trying to find an harmonious and aligned process as much as possible, but have to comply with different regulations in different countries. And this is posing a big challenge in terms of managing the agility in the organization. You know that agility is a key success factor in any kind of organization, but in this respect, agility has to be matched with compliance, and organization needs to become ambidextrous, being able to generate agility on the one side, but being also able to comply with any sort of regulations on the other side. And interestingly, this is putting organizations from the private sectors into the challenge of better understanding what the public sector is. I think maybe in this region, the collaboration between private and public sector is probably developing better than any other part of the world. But this is a critical success factor because regulation often comes from public sector, and private sector have to better understand how to work and how to cope with the public sector and what the main trends are accordingly. Let's move to the eighth one. This is the geopolitical uncertainty, anti-globalization, and disintegration tendencies. We have many of these examples running now in Europe. You might have seen the protest of the yellow vest in France. We don't quite know what is happening in the UK. I don't know whether there will Brexit or not. There are lots and lots of independent movements who want to go for protectionism. America is going for protectionism. And there are lots of crises worldwide that we have to comply with. And this is obviously a key trend which is impacting not just the way we do business, but also the way we live. And organizations are really facing big challenges because there are lots of risks which they were not considering up to a certain level. And this means that they have to reinforce significantly the risk management agenda and being able to respond fast and effectively to any big change coming from this trend. The last one is the environmental damage increasing across the planet. This is a reality for many of us. No doubt that the world and our planet is suffering. No doubt that the environment needs much more care from all of us, and this is creating for organizations big challenges in the way we should really increase the awareness for environment, in the way we operate our processes, in a way to minimize the footprint, and so on and so forth. So these are the 9 megatrends that the EFQM community has defined as being the key global shifts and the key forces which are influencing the way we do business. How to address them? Well, it's not an easy task. Anyhow, we have been discussing together as part of the community, and we came up with a sort of roadmap. We believe that the first important task to perform in this regard is to create or to rely on an existing framework that organizations refer to, as this framework will help us to understand how we can address the challenges of the new megatrends. This framework will help us to shortlist and to consider what is the impact of each megatrend in the business we are in. These frameworks will help us to understand what is the impact of the megatrends vis-a-vis the different stakeholders groups that we work with. This is the first step, so really trying to map, understand, identify what is the relationship between the megatrends and what are the consequences for the way we do business in our organization and the way we relate our activities to the stakeholders. The next step is to break down megatrends to develop tactical insights on how we can implement some changes and some actions which can anticipate the challenges that the megatrends will pose in front of us. And might be also good things to map recent successful experiences that your organization has achieved recently, which you can relate to the different megatrends. And you can build on this. And you can try, to make sure that this experience is amplified and cross-fertilized across the organization that you work with. The last part is really to prioritize the prioritization sort of task and prioritize the megatrends-driven consumer needs and identify what are the key changes vis-a-vis these megatrends that can give you the chances of getting successes in the way you address the needs of your stakeholders. And by doing so, you might then relate these changes to your portfolio of services and try to identify what are the new initiatives that you might want to start, what are the initiatives that you might want to refine in order to be able to anticipate these changes. And if they're not there today, they will be there tomorrow. So basically, the key learning, the key advice that we give as an EFQM community is to use a reference framework which can help you to map what are the implications of all the different megatrends for the business your organization you are in, trying to shortlist them, to prioritize them, and try to relate them to the different needs and the different performances that your organization is achieving vis-a-vis the different stakeholders groups. This is a very good and nice exercise which tries to bridge the gap between the theoretical distant megatrends on the one side and the very practical tasks and operations that you perform as a company on a daily basis. At EFQM, we do have a framework. This is the 8 fundamental concepts. I'm sure you are all familiar with this framework, so I'm not going to digress. I'm not going to spend time to explain it. But basically, these are the 8 fundamental concepts, the 8 basic principles which underpin the EFQM excellence model. And you will see that these are 8 key principles that we can easily relate to the different challenges of the megatrends. You'll see also a number next to each of the fundamental concept, or maybe you can't see it because this is very small. But basically, we ran a survey over the summer as part of the model renewal change process, and we asked respondents, in fact, we got more than 1,200 responses, what is the relevance of the existing fundamental concept vis-a-vis the megatrends, the 9 megatrends, which are affecting the way we do business. And interestingly, we got very high score. You'll see the metrics was from 0 to 4, and for the majority of the fundamental concept, in fact, for the totality of the fundamental concept, we got a score which is 3.6 at a minimum. So community, and it was not just the EFQM community, consider a framework like this and adherence to fundamental concept a fundamental experience to make sure that megatrends are addressed and anticipated in advance effectively by any kind and sort of organization. You might have another framework. You might have your own framework. We do have our framework, which we tested being very effective and very successful in doing this exercise. This is the other exercise that we did, trying to create the mapping between the fundamental concept and the megatrends, and you will see that there is a very clear alignment and relationship between the megatrends and the different fundamental concepts. At the same time, as we are also interviewing C-level people as part of the change process for the model renewal, we got the insights from executives that there are certain aspects of their business which require a certain acceleration. It's not about new thinking. We do have the framework there, but we might need some acceleration in some respect in certain areas as executives are facing big challenges with change, with innovation, with digitalizations, and many other key challenges. So this is the voice of the C-level people who we are interviewing as part of the change process. And because of this, we realize that there are certain aspects of business today which require more attention and accelerations. Among them, the first is about really putting ourselves in the shoes of the customers at any given time. It's about increasing the speed of operating or delivering and obtain faster results, sometimes failing, but then we can learn from the fail. It's about fighting fear. This is a very important element on how to increase and refine the culture of organization. We need to address this fighting fear component and instill an inclusive and purposeful culture as much as possible. It's about increasing the external orientation of the organization and providing it with an outward look. It's about developing and delivering an agile strategy which is able to address the different changes that the megatrends are offering to us. And it's about trust responsibilities as a key success factors and exploit and enjoy new technology. Because of this, we embarked on a change in EFQM as well. We do have our framework, which is an excellence base, but we thought that we had to start a set of new initiatives like accelerators, which can help executive addressing some specific challenges. And we have at the end identified 5 key themes where we are partnering with thought leaders and organizations who have a strong competence in each of these factors, so as to be able to offer to our community some additional insightful values on how to cope with the challenges of digitalization, innovation, business ecosystem, sustainability, and human capital. And you will see here that there is a very clear linkages between this new initiative, which we call Excellence Builders, and the fundamental concept that I described before in one of the previous slides. Interestingly enough, we also tried to map what is the linkages and relationships between these excellence builders and the megatrends, and you will find this picture here in the slides. I'm sure you will be able to get the slides as part of the conference at the end, but that's a key exercise that we did on trying to map these new experiences and this new acceleration that we are offering to the community with the challenges provided by the new megatrends. Let's then start the last part of the presentation. I think I have 5 minutes more, something like that. And I will try to go through some key highlights of each of these excellence builder experience. Let's start with the digitalization. This is, you have a lot of surveys, you have a lot of studies which indicate what is the view of executives, the fact that obviously we can't deny digitalization wherever we work with, in any kind of business we are in. And this comes from a study which was performed with IBM. We are partnering, in fact, with IBM so that we are able to provide our network with a very insightful value propositions on how organization can better understand how to work and how to manage digitalization. Because digitalization and digital transformation at the end of the day means realigning technology, people, organization, and leadership all at the same time. And this is the framework that IBM has created some time ago, which is called the Digital Reinvention Framework. And EFQM is partnering with IBM to provide a seamless experience which gives our customers the opportunity to understand what is the maturity level at the management dimension of the digital agenda. And it's very interesting because the first time we are trying something like this, and we are coupling and we are putting together the key elements of excellence and how to manage an organization with a strong deep dive on digitalization. And this framework which IBM is using and which we are able to offer to our community, it's a very comprehensive framework which helps organizations to understand how they can realize and monetize new values, how they can spawn new business model, and how they can minimize risks with the change and progress in the digital arena. The second key element is about how to create new expertise, how to digitize products and services, and how cognitive and predictive analytics can help us to further refine the value that we provide to customers. And the third element is changing the way of working and see how we can reinforce elements such as design thinking, agile work, and fighting the fear of failing, so as to make sure that we change as much as possible the culture on an organization and to make it more congruent for the challenges that digitalization is posing to all of us. And interesting, and we should not forget it, the customer is at the center of the attention. So everything starts with the customer experience. So in the digital world, everything we do before we embark into a technological adventure, we start with the analysis of what the customer wants and what the customers might benefit from. The second excellence build which we started is on the innovation excellence. No doubt that innovation is a fundamental aspect on how we can improve the businesses in the organization. We have a very interesting quote here coming from LinkedIn. And we realize that innovation is perceived as being a fundamental aspect, but often we have difficulties in delivering innovation in the organization. And this is why we are partnering with the thought leaders in the field of innovation. And we created a program which is based on 4 main components, being the innovation direction, and now innovation strategy is linked to the overall strategy of the organization. It's about innovation delivery, which is about the conditions, processes that we put in place for the innovation to deliver effectively. It's about innovation climate and what kind of culture we are implementing in the organization which foster the innovation experience. And it's about innovation result, because if we don't measure, if we don't consider performances, that's very little that we can do. So we are just launched this new value proposition on innovation. And interestingly enough, as we think that innovation is something that any organization can embark on, we have just launched a new recognition scheme just 1 month ago, which should reinforce the spirit and the drive for organization to move on the innovation ladder. What do these organizations have in common? So these are some organizations who were key players in the past and are not operating anymore in the market. What they've done as a key mistake, they did not create a business ecosystem. What is a business ecosystem? It's a community of players who decide to cooperate, to collaborate at some point together so as to increase the chances of creating a new market or scaling or increasing the market which they would not be able to address if they were to operate independently. And this is very interesting because often the rule of the game is about making sure that distant capabilities are connecting with each other. You know, something that we don't think naturally in the past. I would ask you, what is the chances that you would partner with any sort of organization? You would name some of your strategic suppliers. Today and in the future, it's not going to be the same. So it's about game changes. So often it's about integrating distant capabilities. And by doing so, we minimize risks, and we embark into new experiences for which there will be someone who we can benefit with. And yes, indeed, it's about collaboration and competition at the same time. But if we don't try this, then I'm afraid we might end like the players that I showed in the previous slides. This is the exercise that we started with one of the fourth leaders, is the Institute of Purchasing Management. We created a program which helps the organization to understand how to operate in a new business ecosystem, how to identify future ecosystem players, which you might not think of because this is not the natural way of working, understanding the dynamics within the ecosystems, and define your ecosystem strategy. The responsibility, sustainability, these are the 17 key objectives that UN is foreseeing. No doubt that sustainability is becoming a mainstream, a fundamental challenge for any sort of organization. We launched a program which looks at 9 stakeholders, which you can see here from management, 7 stakeholders, which you can see here from management to environment, and assess what is the policy maturity, the process maturity, the performance, and the perceptions against each of these 9 elements. So this is a very interesting one. The last one is the human capital. So we are partnering with Great Place to Work. Human capital is obviously a key ingredient for success for an organization. They have their own skin. We are working together to create a value proposition, which is creating an aligned process for how we can instill and we can help and support organizations with the excellence approach, and the one of Great Place to Work with trust, human dynamics, pride, leadership components is a fundamental aspect of the recipe. That being said, we are working in a new model, which will be released in October next year, the EFQM model, where the key ingredients coming from these 5 players will be absorbed effectively. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully we'll see you again.
Gracias mille, amico mio. It was a wonderful presentation. Megatrends, business excellence framework, model, ecosystem business, and I think you need to share this presentation, Gianluca, and I will make sure that that happens because we might have a lot of questions. I hope you can, inshallah, send an email to Gianluca. But now probably we have time for 5 minutes to ask questions because we have an international best practice competition running in the main auditorium. So if you have any question, raise your hand, say your name, where you work for, and I'm sure Gianluca we can answer some of the questions. Please.
Or you will help me.
Sorry,
or you will help me in answering the questions.
No, of course. Please, your name and company. Thank you. Be brief, please. Thank you.
Morning. My name is Faris Dahabre. I'm an excellence specialist, and I work as a project manager in Abu Dhabi Education and Knowledge Department. My question is more related into the fundamentals. The survey that you ran linked it to your 8 fundamentals, but were there any other fundamentals that people were focusing on and got other scores other than the ones that you mentioned? Because it was more related to your 8 fundamentals. Did people see other things that they are interested in and that are aligned or related to the new mega trends in excellence or in the business industry?
Yeah, of course, what I depicted with that slide is just, one characteristic of the survey that we ran. The survey consisted of nearly 100 questions, maybe even too many questions. Of course, we ask what is their perception with the relevance of the fundamental concept vis-a-vis the megatrend, but we also ask them what they consider being, mainstream frameworks or mainstream challenges, which we are taking into account for the formulation of the new model. At the same time, we do the same when we interview the C people. At the same time, we realize that these 5 themes for which we started this experience of excellence builders is something which is really needed, which is really beneficial for organizations to progress their maturity on. So that's digitalization, innovation, and the other 3 key themes. We have selected them as the ones who have most of the impact and most of the support for the organization with their challenge. And obviously, leadership is encompassing all of this because there can be a digital successful experience or innovation successful experience if it's not supported by a sound leadership agenda.
Thank you, Gianluca. Appreciate it. Another question, please. Sir, your name? That's the microphone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor Ibrahim Rawabde, CEO of King Abdullah II Center of Excellence. This means actually you are adding another component called excellence builders to the system of the framework. We have the 8 fundamental concepts and the model itself and radar. So you think actually excellence builder is another component to be added?
Well, not exactly. Well, what I'm saying is that we have the framework, which is based on the 8 fundamental concepts. We'll see if there will be a change with the fundamental concept, which is the holistic approach. So that you need to have an holistic approach, first of all, to make sure that all the different initiatives are linked to each other, because the risk otherwise is going in one direction with one initiative, going into another direction with another acceleration. And given the complexity that we work and that we live in, the VUCA environment, this can create big risks. So that being said, the framework is fundamental, and to have it holistically, hooked within the organization. And then you can place different initiatives. You might have an interest, you might have a need to really reinforce your digital experiences and to link it to the management experience of the organization. And that's why we decided to embark into this new set of initiatives. On the other side, there might be some key aspects coming from the excellence builders, which we will have to incorporate in the holistic picture and the holistic framework as such.
Thank you, Gianluca. Appreciate it. We have time for one more question, please. Yes, your name and where do you work for? Thank you, Gianluca.
Good morning. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. My name is Salama. I am head of strategy at National Rehabilitation Center, Abu Dhabi. My question is, as we organizations, how can we link or align our successful products or services with the megatrends? Is there any analytical tool or quality tool to do that? Thank you.
Well, Ben, what I said at the beginning, that you need to have a framework, sort of holistic framework, to help you mapping these mega trends. And the key task that you have to perform is on the one side, see what is the framework, the reference framework in your organization, when you can chip in all the different initiatives that you might want to start to address this mega trend. But it's fundamental that you link them to the needs and performances that you deliver in front of the stakeholders. And there might be different recipes. We have the one of EFQM with the model and the concept, which helps you to map all the different megatrends and trying to help you to understand whether this is generating a new needs coming from the stakeholders, and if there is, in some respect, a reflection in one of these 5 areas, then we work with the thought leaders in that regard. There might be others, but that's, I think, what I would advise to do. The key is, that we have a fear of this megatrend. What are these things? Are they coming from another planet? Are they aliens? So let's try to work practically. A framework can help us to map these things and say, no, this is quite common sense at the end of the day. It's not something coming from Mars or from wherever.
Thank you, Gianluca. And I'm 100% truly believe that the framework gives you an amazing opportunity to be disciplined, to follow, and to improve your performance based on all the things that Gianluca just talked about. We really appreciate your presentation, Gianluca. I wanted to say thanks to everybody to be here this morning.